Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And Tim, we need to call Gerard Butler because we've hit 300 episodes. Although Tim and I Tim did the research and realized that if you count all our minisodes and interview bonus things and dismemberments, we're closer to actually 500 episodes.
Yeah.
But you know how it works here at Civil Gore.
We're at 400. Well, I mean, we're probably around 450 episodes, actually.
Yeah.
But this is our 300th numbered episode, so we made it a little bit of a milestone, and the way we're celebrating is we are breaking up our Summer Slaycation and delivering an old school Civil Gore episode, just like you remember, with our deep dive into a movie and some first chop and all the other stuff, beer pairing, all the things that you're kind of used to.
Yeah, all that good stuff. We even got a fantastic food back.
So it's going to be a quiet celebration of our 300th. No big extravaganza, but we'll save that for our 500th, maybe.
Yeah, well, when 300-year-olds episodes you reach, look as good you will not. I should have done that in the Yoda voice, but I've been like, it's so dry out here lately. My throat I think that would kill my throat. I did one like Macho Man impersonation over the weekend. I nearly wrecked myself, so I can't.
All right, well, let's get right into it and do a classic first chop. All right, Brian, so I know you've got some trip stuff to talk about. This is kind of our catch-up first chop on things that we did over the Summer Slaycation or watched over the Summer Slaycation that we didn't get a chance to talk about because our Summer Slaycation, as you know, is focused solely on the franchise, and we don't really get a first chop chance. So I wanted to talk about, I just picked out, I've been watching a lot of movies for the Horror Challenge. I think I'm up to 233 as of today out of the 366.
You blew past me because I have all my trips that I've had over there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm like trying to like, I know I'll like catch up on a couple of days here with stuff, like especially with our last franchise in the Slaycation is big. And then our Horror Challenge, I mean, that's guaranteed to get at least, I got to get 31 movies in for that month. So I figured, you know what? I said I'll be able to catch up, and I'm sure there'll be a day where I'll just veg and watch like 5 or 6 movies. Like I'm definitely off pace. Like there was one point where I was ahead of it, where I don't have to watch one every day if I wanted to. But then I fell behind, then I caught back up again. But now I'm behind actually the ratio. But like I said, it'll be easier to catch up. I've been trying to find the good thing is I've been trying to find some like shorter films, and actually I have to say props to Screenbox because the way they categorize their movies, they actually have one that's like 80 minutes or less or 90 minutes or less or something like that category. So you can grab some if you want to watch one. Yeah, because not only always do you have 2 hours to watch a movie these days.
That's what I've been doing with Tubi. I've been looking up horror documentaries because those tend to be shorter.
Oh,
so I've been knocking out like little horror docs that are like an hour and 15 minutes, and those count as well. So it's a fun challenge. I'm glad I did it. I will probably be taking a break next year, though. I don't know if I can keep it up for another year in a row.
And you're doing the easier version. You actually, you're at least not that I'm saying it's that much easier because you're still taking the time.
Right.
But like you're rewatching movies with the family that like you've watched before. I'm like, I'm not like counting anything I've already seen.
Yeah.
So, and a couple of times it's like, now I know this is going to sound blasphemous for 2 podcast horrors, but there's times where I'm like just not in the mood to watch a horror movie. So it's like I'll watch I'll sprinkle it in. Like I watched what did I watch earlier in the year? What's the Iron Claw? I watched the Civil War movie. So I've been peppering it in with some other non-horror films in there.
The thing is, I watch a lot of TV, so it's taking away time to catch up on my TV episodes. Like I've had to put that on completely on hold because it's like the Horror Challenge takes precedence. Like so next year is going to be like complete TV binge. I'm not going to watch anything.
Well, you also did kind of like buffer yourself. You're in a good buffer zone, I think. I think you're at like in as many days as you have, you could actually go a couple days and like and then catch up again. So.
With our vacation coming up, I wanted to like be ahead by at least a
Yeah, yeah.
handful. That way I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, that's been fun. But the ones I wanted to talk about, I decided, I'm not going to talk about movies from a horror challenge as much as I am going to talk about movies that came out in the theater fairly recently that I haven't had a chance to talk about. I know at least you've seen Longlegs.
Yeah, like the one long legs we'll both talk about. We can do that one like after because I mean, I definitely want to don't give away spoilers for that because that one
Yeah.
needs to be seen by everybody. But I think we should definitely like try and do a little mini like non-spoiler discussion at the end of this.
Yeah,
So
definitely. The first one up I had was Immaculate. We watched this last night. This is the one. I know it's been out of theaters quite a while now, but
yeah,
it was the closest one I could find to like a theatrical release that I had seen recently. And a lot of people have compared this to The First Omen because it's kind of a similar storyline. But I think this is definitely its own thing. I I love Sydney Sweeney anyway, and I thought she was great in this. But I thought I was kind of impressed with this one. Like I thought there were some really like good creepy scares in this one, and it went a little bit more gory than I expected, which I thought
Hey,
was really cool. And I Anna watched it with me. She really liked it. Olivia watched at least half of it with us, and she really liked it. So I thought this was a great. I mean, it's in a world where the first Omen exists and this movie exists. I think both of them deserve to be here. I think they are definitely different enough that they're their own experience. And I really, really liked it. I was kind of I knew it was going to be good because everybody talked about how good it was. So I wasn't going in expecting anything less, but I was kind of actually blown away by how much I liked it over what I was expecting.
yeah.
So
Well,
that
Sydney
one's
Sweeney, like I mean, everyone like obviously there's there's a lot of people have like comments on Sydney Sweeney for other things other than her acting, but honestly, she does like, whatever kind of role she gets. I mean, she's done obviously horror really well. She's done drama really well. Like I watched that other horror movie she did for one of the horror movies she did for the challenge earlier in the year. I forgot the name of it now, but it's the one. It was almost like that movie, The Perfection kind of thing,
hmm
but it was she was their piano players. It was her and the one from I Know What You Did Last Summer, the series was in it. Um, and and then I watched that one, the comedy that she just did with what was it called? Oh my God, I'm forgetting.
anyone but you.
Anyone but you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and she handled that great. She was so good in that. So she obviously has a good range of talent. So it's like you're gonna get something good when you get like Sydney Sweeney in whatever vehicle.
what was funny when I was watching it is when she was doing just her like normal talking nun stuff, like normal like what you would think would be the easy acting. She was actually better when she was doing the hard acting, where she was terrified and she was screaming and when she was crying. Like she was actually better at that than she was like the normal like just delivering dialogue stuff. But I mean, she's good
Nice.
regardless. But it struck me that like it's almost like the challenge the more she's challenged, the better she is, kind of thing. So
Yeah, no,
it was really
she's
interesting.
Yeah, she's like just I mean like just a good talent. I hate to see like cast aside just because of her looks, and like
Yeah,
at least you fine you want to. It's I mean she's very obviously an attractive woman. Fine, I get it. Well like I'll say it as well, but don't like at least include her skills as an actress in there. It's like
yeah. There's a
she's
reason
good.
she's getting a lot of roles now, and it's not
Yeah.
just because of the ones the guys focus on.
I mean, if
Uh,
it was just about looks, Tim, you and I would star in everything. So
exactly.
I mean, and
We'd be in everything.
we'd be in everything. But, unfortunately, there's a skill that you need that we don't possess. So that's why we're not in there.
Nope.
But
Nope.
oh, and that's a shame too because the perfect vehicle we had was Timmaculate. But
Yeah. Oh man,
they
missed
even
opportunity.
Tim didn't even get cast for that. I mean, but should we we'll
That's
go
my one man Broadway show, Tim Immaculate.
yeah, Timmaculate. I like that. That we need to that's your biography too,
Yeah.
also.
There you go.
Immaculate, a podcaster's tale. I guess I'll skip. Well, we'll do a little flip flop. Because then I'll go to my movie. I'll talk about the vacation stuff later. But
Okay.
so I saw of course the final film in the little Ty West trilogy there. I don't know if does it have an official name of like is it just like the I don't know what to call it. I just been calling it the Ty West trilogy lately, of course, and that's Maxine, which was the sequel to X, and then Pearl was technically the prequel to X. So, but so Maxine, I saw a lot of people kind of feel the same way, whereas like they really enjoyed it, had a lot of good '80s grit in it. It had some not too. This is not too much of a spoiler, but there is a lot of mention to the Night Stalker in there. So if you were, you knew that story, it's kind of neat how they include that in the time frame of the movie, and that's kind of a, kind of overlapping thing in there, kind of like that. I don't know if you, it's kind of a little side thing that Bronx is Burning movie where about the New York Yankees, where it was like a 3-part series or 4-part series or something like that, but it also took place during the Son of Sam going on and all that stuff going on. So I like when a true historical event is kind of thrust into the background of a movie to give it that authenticity. And so I thought that he did a great job of including that stuff in there. Oh my God, did he capture that '80s LA? Because I used to go out there to visit my grandmother every year, and so we were always driving. She lived out there, so we were always in LA. It really captured the feel of that, and I mean, again to sing the praises of Mia Goth is I feel like it's almost like overkill at this point. She's so good. She was so good in this. Everyone actually in this was great. Giancarlo Esposito, I think, nearly stole the movie though. He was so good in this,
I love
and
him. Oh my
his
gosh.
hair in this almost stole the movie from him. But yeah, so I think it was the perfect way to finish off that trilogy, and it was kind of neat if you think about it, how they went. They had one movie, they did the prequel, and then they did the sequel to the first one, kind of almost like reverse Star Wars way they did that. But what I liked was so like if you look at it as a whole movie. Now Julie hasn't seen any and wants to see all of them, but I'm gonna show them in release order to her, not
Hmm.
like the story order. Like it's
Yeah.
again, that's another reference to Star Wars. Some people will watch it from episode one all the way through. But however you want to do it, it's up to you. But I'm gonna do it. I want to do it in the way it was presented to the world, kind of thing. Because I think you learn about the characters best that way. But again, I thought Maxine was a great capper to that trilogy, and I think great great story for and if you think back to X, it's a nice next thing, and there's some great references. So you definitely need to see the other two films. You could probably still enjoy this as a standalone. I think he did a good job of doing that, but still, I think you get the most out of it. Obviously, if you've been a fan of the two previous films that came out.
I
So
think since I didn't get to catch it at theater, I think I'm gonna do a rewatch of X and Pearl before I watch this one. I
yeah,
think
I
the
think
lit.
it's coming out soon on it's already out on home release. You can rent it, but I think it's going to come out on Blu-ray shortly. So once I get that, I figure Julie and I'll have a little
Yeah,
trilogy watch there.
because Olivia saw X, but she didn't see Pearl, and I definitely want her to see that one. So it'd be a good excuse just to rewatch all of them. I think.
I will say Pearl is still my favorite one,
Hmm.
just because of how good Mia Goth was in that, and it was it's a lot different from the other ones. It's like I feel like it's a lot easier to play '70s and '80s.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
than it is to play back when that one took place. And there was a lot of a lot more going on in that one. I just it just showed her acting chops how good she was. So
The next one I had up here was A Quiet Place Day One. Now you haven't seen this one yet, Brian?
no, I haven't seen it. Yeah,
Okay,
so
so yeah, we went and saw this one in the theater because Olivia's like loves A Quiet Place. I'm I'm telling you, I'm not the biggest fan of the series, and it's nothing against the. It's not really nothing anything against the movie. It's just like the whole concept just stresses me out. I don't like. I'm not a big apocalyptic person. Like I don't
well,
like.
but Livy is because she
And
loves all
she's
those
yeah,
Resident
she's the
Evil
exact opposite.
movies.
She
Yeah,
loves anything apocalypse, anything end of days where the whole world's falling apart. She loves that stuff, and to me, it just stresses me out. It's too doom and gloom for me. I don't typically like it. And A Quiet Place is like double the tension because you have to be quiet the whole time. And the first time I went and
imagine
saw,
me.
oh
I
my,
don't think I'd survive.
oh, I
I really
wouldn't survive
wouldn't.
at all. And I'm a quiet
Yeah,
person, but
yeah,
I
you
mean,
are, but
but still, but the first time I went and saw A Quiet Place in the theater, it was so quiet in there because everybody was trying to be quiet because nobody wanted to rustle their popcorn or anything. And it stressed me out the entire movie. I couldn't even enjoy the movie. I was so stressed out about like making too much noise or something. So it like left a sour taste for me for the whole franchise. And then when I watched the sequel was a little better because I watched that one at home. I refused to go to the theater to
Yeah.
see that one, and that was a little bit better. And I kind of got a little bit more comfortable with the series at that point. And then when this one came out, I was like, why do we really need a prequel? Because the sequel flashes back
Yeah.
to the origins of it, and I'm like, we've already seen this. There's no real reason. Like, we know what happened, we know how it started. Like, why does this movie even exist? And kind of went in not really excited to watch it, both because I'm kind of mediocre on the series as a whole, and plus because it felt kind of redundant. And I'm happy to say I was really wrong. Like, this is a really cool story. It's it's a very intimate story, and I think that's what helped set it apart and made it not feel like it was a rehash of the flashbacks from part two. It was really its own thing. It was very unique in terms of a horror movie to have this backdrop of this giant apocalyptic event going on, and you're just so laser focused on just these couple of characters. It reminded me a lot of The Last of Us TV
Yeah,
series,
that's what
which
I've heard that comparison a lot from people that this one specifically
yeah,
kind of gave that vibe.
because you're focused on these two characters navigating their way, and everything else is just a background noise to what they're experiencing. So yeah,
Kind of,
it
yeah, I
was
kind of like
pretty
that
cool.
when they do that, like you said, because like imagine like taking Independence Day, but specifically focusing on just Jeff Goldblum's character.
Yeah,
Those big budget blockbusters like those Roland Emmerich ones. If you notice, what they do is they have the same kind of formula. And don't get me wrong, I love those. I'll see them all the time, but it's like it's usually like there's a couple of stories arching through this big event, and that's fine. And that way you can kind of control the characters and still get so you get some character pieces, but you also get the big bombs and exploding and destruction and all that. In this one, it's like you've already kind of like I from what I understand, you've already I've seen the first two, and you kind of get that one family story, and you get it. So you definitely, I think that was definitely the right move to take the focus off of them again, because anything more on them would just be probably an overkill. So it's kind of
yeah,
nice that they, like you said, they went to another, see how someone else handled it, I guess. And speaking of handle it, by now I'm sure everyone is. Hopefully, we have a lot of new listeners from this, because we had a contest actually featuring the digital copies of this movie, and it was probably our most successful contest to date
oh
for
yeah,
giveaway, because
definitely, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we gave away 5 digital codes for this movie, and Tim and I figured out after doing a couple of these contests, and especially with the cesspool that Twitter is, you need to kind of weed out bots. Twitter is so bot heavy. And so we used to, when we originally did the contest, you would do these contests, and you get a million people liking your tweet, and then even retweeting it. And then we'd go in there and we find out they weren't in a real account. They were just these people that have programmed things in to like and retweet when certain keywords come up. And that's not fair to people that actually want to try and win. And so I said, I got to figure out a way to, make sure that these bots aren't like, just monopolizing all the contests. And I figured out, well, if we ask for a response, a reply as well, that you can kind of tell when a bot answers
Yeah, yeah.
versus a non-person. And we got all good responses this time. And the question is like, how do you think, on 1 to 10, how you think you'd survive during this movie? And some of the answers we had were great. There was a lot of great interaction. We met a lot of new people, got a ton of new
Ton of
followers.
new followers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a fun time. I'm like, I don't want this contest to end. Of course, I after the end of it, when I'm tabulating everybody's responses and putting them in the random generator, I was like, oh my God, there's too many people. But so I got to find a faster way to do that the next time, because I was literally putting everyone's name in there and their Twitter handle and trying to make it, because I didn't want to miss every, and someone like me, who I want to make sure that everyone was accounted for. So I literally double and triple checked it, going through it 3 times. It took like seriously 5 hours. Julie's like, "You are still doing that?" She's like, "You got to find a faster way to pick the winners." I'm like, "Pick the winners? I didn't even get everybody in there yet." Like, it literally took all day, like
Yeah,
Sunday,
it
putting those
was
people in, and then a couple of added. But again, I loved it. It was so much fun. So thank you for everyone that participated and gave such funny answers.
Yeah.
because there were some in there. A lot of people the same. Like, the odd one is we have a lot of flatulent people out there and pay because so many people are like, oh, I'd fart once and that's it, I'm done. And I'm like, oh my god, well then we gotta like
Yeah.
figure a way to get like an invention where you can wear like certain pants like that
Well,
would
that's
like
what I told Olivia. I was
contain
like,
the
I don't
fart sound.
understand. Like, I snore. Like, there's no way I would be
Yeah,
dead the
you
first
couldn't even
night.
sleep.
The first
You'd
night,
have to like, yeah, you'd have to Nightmare on Elm Street it and like stay
yeah,
up all
like
night.
there's
You could not go to
like
sleep.
I'd be instantly dead. They never said anything about that. They never. I think it's too difficult a problem to write
Yeah.
around, but they never really mentioned it. And I'm like what guy doesn't? Like almost all guys snore to some extent, you know.
Yeah, or you're gonna. I mean, some people. What? All it would take me is one bad allergy day, because even my breathing and the nostrils get heavy, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I mean, like I mean, I don't know what level. I can't remember. Did they ever explain like what level of quiet you can be? Like, does it have to be 100% perfect silence, or can there be like a little bit of sound?
I think
Because
it's
you got to imagine the
inconsistent.
ambient sound alone, these creatures would be going like all over the place, and the other thing is too, with all the animals just existing, they make noise by walking through the trees. So it's like, and it doesn't seem like they're always. You notice the creatures are just kind of walking around most, at least in the first two. Again, I haven't seen the third one yet, but in the first two, they're just walking around and they're looking and waiting to hear a sound. But I'm like, there's animals there. There's trees, branches break off and fall, and you don't see these people running. They're not running
They
amok
tend
all over
to.
the place at every sound.
It seems to me like they have some kind of filter to filter out like ambient natural sound. Like you notice like in the first one they hid near that waterfall because the running water
Right.
they couldn't hear past that. I wonder if
Yeah.
it's something like that where they kind of just tune out like what you consider nature noises. I don't know. But how would they know? Because they're on Earth. They've never been to Earth before.
Yeah,
Like, I
like
don't know.
that would be what I'd have to do. I'd have to get like the most. I'd have to go by the most loudest waterfall or something that I just like stand behind and like let them like go after
I don't
that
know. There's
because
some. I feel like there's some inconsistencies in that movie, the way they
yeah,
do it. But whatever. I really enjoyed it. It was probably. I mean, I might go as far to say is it. It's hard for me to put it above the first one because the first one, obviously, we always say the first one.
yeah,
You'd have to be able to dethrone the first in a series. But just from a pure like enjoyment level, I might have enjoyed this one more than any of the other ones that I watched. It really was that good, and it's unique. And uh, Lupita Nyong'o's freaking incredible as she
yeah.
is in
When is she
everything.
not good? It's like I mean,
And that's, I mean, quite honestly, if she had not been in this, there's a good chance I would not have gone to see it at the theater. I would have just been like, whatever, I'll catch it whenever it comes to streaming. But because she was in it and I love her so much, she's so good. Like I felt like I had to go see it. So she was definitely a big draw for me, and she did not disappoint at all. She was incredible. So yeah,
rarely does she ever.
that was a fun theater outing that day. We all going to go see that. That was really entertaining.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk briefly, in non-spoiler as possible, about Long Legs, because Long
Yes.
Legs, like that with the anticipation and marketing that they had for this movie, this was so ripe for disappointment. And and I have to say, I went in there like, with the same with everybody. Like I saw exactly what everyone else saw coming up to it, the little teases, the little cool things, the creepy posters and everything. So I went in, and I went in with very high expectations still. And I came out with being still blown away, I thought, because I mean, Tim and I have big fans of Micah Monroe, and of
Hmm.
course Nick Cage. I mean, you like gotta love Nick Cage, but then like Alicia Witt in this movie, and like was incredible. And was Kiernan. I always pronounce her name right. Is it Kiernan Shipka? Is that how you say that
Hmm.
name?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was incredible in it. And I'm not gonna say why or anything because I don't want to. You need to go into this with as little knowledge as possible. But I will say, I mean, it was a little different than I thought it was going to be, but in the best way possible. It was so good. I think I will say, if you like movies like Silence of the Lambs, if you kind of like weird characters that you might find in like a Twin Peaks or something like that, I think just the mix of all of the of little things in there just will make you just blow you away. And it's like it Like, I don't know about you, but when you went and saw it, remember I saw it and I told you, I said I'm not going to say anything about it other than I loved it, and you saw it a couple days later, but we actually, because our whole group hasn't seen it yet in our little chat group, Tim and I actually really didn't really discuss much about it.
No, we
But
didn't.
did you think when you went in there, didn't it was it a little different than you thought it was going to be the way?
It was a lot different, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I was definitely super hyped for this, and I brought the whole family. So Anna and Josh were with me, and I was a little worried because I had not read any spoilers, so I didn't know if this was like going to be too much for them, or if it's going to have some content that they shouldn't have been seeing. So I was a little kind of like I
Yeah,
was a little on edge the entire movie because I didn't know what to expect.
well, I did tell you, I think didn't I tell you I said they'd be okay for them
Yeah,
based on what
yeah,
they've seen that you told
yeah.
me they've seen.
And
So
so, but
at
I was
least you
still
had
like,
that little bit going in.
yeah, I had that little bit. That's the only reason I took them to begin with because you said, they'll be okay. But I was still kind of like daddy mode. I was a little bit nervous, and I was super hyped. And I will say, the minute I came out of the theater, I felt a little bit of disappointment because it was so different from what I thought it was going to be. And I was sitting there thinking, I liked it. I liked it. I don't know if I loved it. I don't know if I loved it. And it wasn't until like I kept thinking back about it, like a day or two later, I kept thinking about it. And I kept thinking about Micah Monroe's performance and how she acted like in this kind of a strange, it was just a strange performance. Um, it, I kept thinking about every aspect of it. And the more I thought about it, the more I let it marinate, like the more I loved it. And I kept my mind just kept going back to it over and over and over. And I was thinking, I really do like this movie because I don't keep thinking about movies. If they're forgettable, they're forgettable. Like if I keep thinking about a movie days later, something
Yeah.
happened there. So there was something I really, really liked about it. And so it was funny because I kind of completely changed my mind on the disappointment, but it took like a couple of days for me to let it simmer before I came to that conclusion.
Well, with movies like that, I think with all that anticipation and all the other like outside like distractions with things that come in, and then everyone else's reaction, and sometimes it does take a little bit to settle because you're in there and you're on this adrenaline rush, and there's it's ways that it works reverse too. I remember there was that episode of what it was one of the I think it was the Goldbergs, but I think it was that might have been Goldbergs or might have been Schooled. I don't know the sequel, that one they
Yeah.
did, that little stuff. But it was like where they were talking about Phantom Menace, and Phantom Menace had the glow,
Yeah.
meaning like you came out of it and you're so excited because it was a Star Wars movie, and oh my God, it was awesome, and Darth Maul, but then when you think back, you're like, huh. Overall, as a movie, it was okay. I mean, I love it because it's Star Wars, but as a movie, it had a lot of flaws, and it was really you basically got really excited over a handful of scenes surrounding a trade dispute.
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
so it's like, and don't get me wrong, I still will watch Phantom Menace. I will admit though, it is probably the hardest out of all the Star Wars movies for me to rewatch. And I saw it I think like 6 times in the first 3 days it came out in the theater because I was still trapped in the glow and the excitement of the first new Star Wars movie and how long, right? So I get that, and it's like I'm glad that I like when it works this way better though. When you like
Yeah.
come out of the movie and you're not sure what to think about it, and then you get to marinate on it, and you realize, well, how could you ever be upset with a movie that sticks with you and grows on you in a positive way after seeing it one time and it's like days later now? And I remember because like after I got out, I mean, I did a double feature that day. I did that. I had about an hour and a half break, and then I saw Maxine because that was my trip to Kansas City. I kind of like I kind of tagged along with Julie's work trip. So I had that open day, and I that's what I did. I went and I'm like, there was a movie theater, a really cool movie theater that because it's in Kansas City, it literally was connected to a jazz club, no less, which was
Oh,
awesome.
cool.
I thought, yeah, like a literally full on jazz club, and you get a full. The bar wasn't open, unfortunately, yet, but could get a beer, but it was like Bud Light, I think, all they had at the concession stand. So I couldn't get good drinks like I wanted in there at that point. But like, it was still cool. It was like a block and a half, two and a half blocks from my hotel. So I figured I'm gonna do a double feature. Seeing Long Legs that. So I saw Long Legs, had a little bit of time to process it, and then went and saw Maxine. So it really was kind of like, even though Long Legs blew me away, and so did Maxine, I loved it also. It was like, again, it was like as the days grew on, I was like thinking back to Long Legs. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. so good. Like I was like, I really love this part, and I really loved how this thing was, and it's like the fact that you could have all that, and like as good as Nicolas Cage was, he might not even be the standout in that if you think about it with
Yeah,
some of the
yeah,
other characters, which I don't want to mention why. I'm like, wow. I mean, this movie was really like good. I mean, and like I've only seen it the one time still, and I'm like looking forward to seeing it again. I know Julie's gonna love it because I just know her style of horror movie, and I know she's
yeah.
gonna like
I can't
absolutely
wait.
love that.
I can't wait for the rewatch because now
Yeah,
that I feel like now that I know what to expect, it takes all that
yeah, all
weight
that pressure's
off of it.
gone.
All that
Yeah,
pressure is gone, and now you can just enjoy it for the filmmaking. And there's so much there to like.
yeah,
I'm really glad that audiences got it because
yeah,
this is a movie that could have been so out there that it just didn't land, and it could have gone, been out of theaters in a couple of weeks, and instead it was the highest grossing
yeah. The indie horror
independent.
movie in like history, right, or
Yeah,
something.
it was
Because
crazy. Like it broke records. So I'm really, really, really excited that people got it.
yeah,
Because
and
I
then
almost didn't get it. I
yeah,
almost didn't get it when I first walked out.
yeah, and I mean to think like Osgood Perkins is that like goofy guy from Legally Blonde, and like in the beginning, and it's like you think about like, and then look at what this guy's done. I mean, well, look at his father. I mean, but
Yeah,
but still, so it's like you kind of like, but I'm so glad he was like able to like it seemed like he did his vision and like
yeah,
and just said it. Look, you know what? If it sticks, it sticks. If it hits, I'm not going to compromise. I want this to be what it is, and he threw it out there, and audiences loved it and ate it up, and whoever marketed it so well because no one really knew what to go into it, what they expected. So everyone probably came out with their own like interpretation at first until it all like you like we said like until it just like settles into your consciousness as what it was.
it's one of those movies that you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. There's certain movies that I'm watching and I'm completely aware I'm in the theater the whole time, and maybe I'm checking my watch occasionally, but this one was one of those. It was like the minute it's from the time it started till the time it ended, I was in that world. Like I was completely immersed in that movie until I got out. Almost like when we got out of the theater, I'm kind of like, and you're kind of like in a daze because you're like, holy crap, like where have I just been for the last hour and a half? It was kind of that. It was almost like when you're reading like a really good book and you're like completely just like immersed in it. I thought that
Yeah.
movie did a really good job of just keeping you locked in. It is kind of a claustrophobic movie, and maybe that's the reason why I felt that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was just a really kind of a masterful job
Yeah,
of
and I actually had I think I had, it was like two other people in the theater with me. It was a small theater, but like I think I only had one guy who was like three seats down from me, and then like I think a couple was down there. And so Maxine had a little bit more, but it was like I talk about an intimate experience. I mean, I was literally almost in there, like almost had the whole theater to myself.
Oh, what's
Like it was,
crazy? This is proof of what I'm talking about. Our theater was packed. I mean, packed. Like it might have been sold out for long
yeah,
legs, and you could have heard a pin drop in that theater. The entire movie, like there was not people cutting up. There was not people laughing at Nicolas Cage. None of that. Like people were like dead serious, immersed in this movie, and that's rare that you see
yeah.
a horror movie that can grip people that tightly that you don't hear a bunch of the a-holes cutting up or anything.
Just usually people will laugh out of a nervous laughter. I think this you couldn't even do that because you're just so like so
Like
drawn into
riveted,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. So
completely
yeah,
riveted.
I definitely a must see, I think. So I guess real quick, I'll just go into that and then we'll get into our main feature. But I just wanted to touch base on my big Vegas trip that I went on. Because one of the things I did was that, and I want to post a video of it. I want to clip it, edit it because the copy they gave me was so long. We did that Slotzilla thing. My friend Steve and I did it. The other guys that no one else wanted to do it. We was my high school friends, the six of us, but we were the only two that were brave enough to do it. Well, one of them couldn't do it. He had an injury he was recovering from, so he wasn't allowed actually. But and we did. It was great because we did it at nighttime. So after midnight, it was I think it was like you got like I think $15 off or something. So We went, and what Slotzilla is, it's like one of those zip lines. And then Julie and I did the other one previously where you just kind of sit there and you kind of zip line that way in like the seat. Well,
Uh-huh.
this one is taller. It's like maybe another 30, 40 feet higher to start, and you come out of this giant slot machine kind
Mm.
of thing. Like it's literally designed. Like I said, I'll post a video, but if you want to look it up now, look up Slotzilla on Fremont Street. So you're a little bit higher, and you lay in the Superman position. So it's funny, that nervousness people get on like a roller coaster or something. It's the lift tilt. Well, this one, it's like you're going up. You're waiting in line, and they're flipping you into this like full harness and everything, and this hookup thing, and they're weighing you to make sure you're the right weight. And you're waiting online for a while in this like industrial structure because you can't really see where you are. Then you get into finally you walk into this elevator, which is like one of those metallic metal grated elevator kind of thing. So you can kind of see outside a little bit. And you're going up, which what feels like 25 minutes. I swear to God. It's probably like 40
Uh,
seconds. But just because you can't see, you're going up and the elevator's going relatively slow. But just through the slats, you see the lights. So like in your head, I think it messes up like you're going up one floor, two floor, two floor. Well, you're probably not even going up that. So you
mhm.
finally get up to the top, right? And then you get out and you're in this completely enclosed room. You can barely see how high you are unless you kind of like bend over and kind of look out the side. But even then, it's like Fremont Street. So, Fremont Street has that like hover on it over where you're going to go zip line to. So even if you kind of can peek out forward, it's very disorienting how high it is. So basically, then once they call your name, you get up there. You're in a little bit of a queue, and then you get up to the thing, and they put you on this like thing that looks like an air mattress on your stomach, and then they're hooking stuff on. And if you have a bag, they hook your bag on first, and that like behind you and everything. And so they're doing all this stuff behind you, and you're like on the floor. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, then all of a sudden the thing you're on inflates and starts pushing you up about like another like maybe 3 or 4 feet, so they can start hooking you up to the other thing. So you're like to the thing, and you still can't see anything. And from what it looks like on the outside is literally it looks like a giant slot machine with like the rolls that go ding 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 ding, ding and it lights up, and all these things coming up. And then what they do is when you're laying there, you're up on this thing, the air drops down, and so you're just kind of hanging there in like the Superman position up there. And we got the video, so we had the camera thing, and they told the guy, they're like, okay, hold it on yourself for like 10 seconds, and then after 10 seconds, you could turn it and face whichever way you want. And I'm like, how I'm gonna like remember this? I'm like 300, I don't know how many feet I'm up in the air. I don't know. I don't you think I'm gonna remember the count to 10? But I actually did it fine because we ended up getting the still and the pictures and everything, and it was cool. So I'll start posting some of those. So anyway, so then basically when you're hanging there, the wall in front of you just starts to go down, and then you just look and you see like the zip line going down, and you see the lesser zip line like below you by like 40 feet. And you're like looking down, you're like, wow, okay. And then next thing you know, you just start to gradually take off and just go. And I went faster because I think I had the weight, I had the bag, which I was with me. So that contained like our phones and our wallets and stuff. So I think I had a little bit of heavier, and plus I was a heavier person than my friend Steve anyway. So, and then you just go shooting down. And like, I did you do the whole Superman pose, and you're like, everyone's looking below you and go, and then you go under the lights, and it's cool. And this also zip line is also another like I think a couple of 100 feet longer to you. So it's that initial drop you kind of go over across the street, but then once you hit under the roof of Fremont Street, so to speak, it's just one of the coolest experiences because you're just like the lights and you hear music and band and everyone's waving and cheering you as you're going on. It's one of the coolest things. I highly recommend it 100%. Get over if you have a fear of heights. I don't recommend it. But Tim, I know you did the zip line to Dollywood, so you could handle this.
Yeah,
You'd
yeah.
be fine. Definitely recommend. So if we ever get our Vegas trip we're planning for your birthday together there, we need to all do that. I think you can only go, I think, on this one like 4 at a time for a cross. So if we go all bunch of us, we might have to do it in waves, but still.
That
Gotta
sounds
definitely
cool.
something to do. The other thing I want to talk to you about is, of course, the Sphere in Vegas, which is,
Oh, I definitely want to
everyone
see
who's,
that.
yeah, if you're, and now I will say this, as cool as it was, I heard this thing lost like $1 billion or something for this in its first year. I think the price point is very high. Like we showed up at the final show of the night, and we didn't buy the tickets in advance. We just showed up there, and they gave us the options. I think our tickets were like $147 for
Yeah.
this, and the movie itself was like 50 minutes. I can understand that. Like my brother went to the Grateful Dead one, Like I see like a special event one or being that much, but for this, which was a cool movie, it was a Darren Aronofsky film about these kind of like almost like Earth is destroyed and people come back to it like years later and like from cryo freeze kind of thing. So it's a weird little story going on. But and the first hour you're in this thing is like you're just basically downstairs. This robot is talking and moving around, and you could just wander around and see like little exhibit things, and they have like a couple of weird snack bars and stuff. Then you get into the thing, and I'll tell you, talk about fear of heights. I think if you're on this, like the rows are like very steep. And it's one of
Yeah.
those things with very light, like small rows. Like you picture you going in like the upper deck at like one of the football stadiums. That's what like almost the whole thing feels like. So you get in there and you're watching the movie start, and the first like 15 minutes of this movie is only like or maybe less, but it's like is just a part of this giant dome screen, and I'm like, I said, okay. I said, I know this thing has gotta expand at some point, and it does like as like at the appropriate time. But I'll tell you oh my God, like once it hits and you're getting a full sphere experience, this thing is like unlike anything I've ever seen. It's like, and you can already tell there's like little weak spots on the thing. If you look up in certain corners, like there was this weird like spot that like the screen or one of the lights must have went out, something on it, didn't it? But there's like kind of smells in there that they pump in, and there's this whole thing, and it's like you're like basically going through all the different parts of the world, and some features just are unbelievable. Like there's a sequence in this opera house where you're like in one of those giant old school like the Muppet Show like opera house things
Hmm.
with little things, and you're like just they pull you in and out of it, and it's just like it's unreal. If you just keep yourself focused on the screen and above your head and to the side, it's like you're so immersed. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Like it makes IMAX look like you're watching it on like just a regular movie theater kind of thing. But I do think the price point is a little too high, which is why when we went in there was tons of empty seats, tons,
Yeah. When I
and
looked it up online, I was looking at tickets. I was like, holy crap, this thing is expensive for
yeah.
just this. Not even the concerts. This is like just the normal like films they show.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
crazy.
granted, we could have got a little cheaper seats, but the lady there, she was like, "Well, if you want really the best seats, like better seats, you might as well do that." And it was like at that point, it was like $17 difference. I'm like, all right, we're already spending 100 and something. What the hell's the difference at this
Yeah.
point? Plus,
Yeah.
we're in Vegas, where I would like at that point, if you're in Vegas and you're trying to like stick to a budget at that point, it's like it's just not gonna work ever.
You
It's
might as well
hard.
pick a different destination.
Yeah, just don't like just kind of like whatever budget you expect, just kind of in your head expect to spend at least a few hundred more kind of thing. Because like we ended although I will say every food place we ate at was like came out to a little cheaper because um there were six of us and we all split it and it came to it. But I tell you though, I ate well on this trip and I found one of my favorite new sushi places ever. I had like, that's how I ate well. We had fun. I won a couple of bets there and at the sports casino and thing. We had the pool day so it's like still overall fun. Definitely had a ton of fun, but I just wanted to highlight those two things that I felt like might be good for the show, which was the Slotzilla and, cause that's like a theme parky attraction and of course the Sphere. So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to go at some
yes,
point.
we got to plan Tim Fest.
Yes, for sure. Well, that brings us to our main feature. So the movie we chose this week was one that's gotten a lot of buzz lately, and that is I Saw the TV Globe, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. I'm hoping I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
And
I was calling it Schoenbrunn, so
yeah, I said Schoenbrunn.
God knows how you actually say the poor woman's name.
um, it stars Justice Smith as Owen, Bridget Lundy Payne as Maddie, Ian Foreman as young Owen, Helena Howard as Isabel, Lindsay Jordan as Tara, Danielle Deadweiler as Brenda, Fred Durst as Frank, and Connor O'Malley as Dave. Two teenagers bond over their love of a supernatural TV show, but it is mysteriously canceled. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this one at all. I had just heard that it was really good. And Brian can vouch for this. I texted him like 30 minutes in. I was like, this should be
Yeah,
called I Saw the TV Slow because this is
yeah,
like, this is super slow. Nothing's happening. I wasn't like disappointed in it or anything at that time. I just was like, this is like, I'm not like sure where this is going. But by the end of it, I was pretty blown away by it. Honestly,
yeah,
it's definitely definitely not for everyone. And the reason that one of the reasons why I everything kind of suddenly clicked for me is because Jane Schoenbrunn also did a movie called oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting. We're all going to the World's Fair. Is that right?
Oh, right. Yeah. I still need to see that. Yeah. I want to
Yeah.
see that.
So I had watched We're All Going to the World's Fair a couple years ago when it came out, and it it was such an intriguing movie because it's billed as horror, but there's not really a lot of horror that happens in it. It's more of the I guess it's more of the feeling and the emotions that are the horror rather than
I think
actual
that's her
scary things
thing,
happening.
though. I feel like
Yeah,
that's her style.
that is it is. And what's funny is like I was 30 minutes in this movie, had no clue that she had directed that movie, and I kept thinking this feels like We're All Going to the World's Fair. It feels like that same movie. It has that same look. It has kind of that same dialogue, that same feel, the same thing where like nothing scary is actually happening, but there's like this feeling of dread hanging over the entire movie. And when I found out that she had directed it, I was like, oh, well, it all makes sense now. Like everything clicks now. This makes complete total sense. And after that, I was almost able to enjoy the movie more because I kind of knew what I was getting into. But
Because I went into this totally blind. All I knew was it was about these two people that kind of like this TV show. That was all I knew about it. And obviously, there's a lot more theme
yeah,
that covers. And I actually had to look it up because once I realized I kind of saw that there was this this themes of what a trans person might go through. I wanted to give it the true respect, and I looked it up because I'm not going to pretend to know I understand what people go through that that are trans. And so I wanted to make sure I was not going to accidentally through out of sheer ignorance insult someone of the trans community or insult the themes that it's trying to get. Because and once I did, when you see that, when you know about that, when I read it afterwards and I started to read the things, it like actually gave me even a more of an appreciation of the movie on how well it covered it. I
yeah,
mean, granted, again, I wouldn't know 100%. I'd have to talk to someone who actually is trans and that could say, oh yes, that's what we felt like. That is what we
yeah,
feel like sometimes. Because and like one of the things I saw mostly was they said that like the scene that covers that cracked egg moment they call is what the article I read. So I'm quoting that. I'm not That's not my own term. So if I'm wrong on that too, I apologize. But how kind of where it's that moment where they realize that their insides don't match their outsides. They feel like they're not in the right body, so to speak, kind of thing. And that is covered in this movie. So it's so obvious, but not at the same time. It's like done in such a great way that I think, and it just, as a viewer, you're just so mesmerized in it at some point. And it is very slow in the beginning, very, 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 very methodical to what it's trying to present to you. And I think it's almost like at the same time, it's like you're just so fascinated, even though if you're not understanding everything at the moment, it kind of still like pulls you in and keeps you in, which that takes some skill, and it should not be looked at lightly because, like we just said with Long Legs, like how the theater was dead quiet because they were so invested in it. I feel like this was the same way. Like I wasn't like I know it was going slow, and I knew it was, and the only reason I looked at my watch at one point is because I knew I had to I think I had something and I was making sure that the movie I could fit it in because I didn't want to stop it. Um, and it's just the visuals of it are very just like mesmerizing throughout, and I mean, it's about a show called The Pink Opaque just alone with,
there
the
is a
color
lot of
scheme of
pink.
that. Yeah,
There's a
there's
lot of weird when I weird uses of color in this. And when I say weird, I mean in a good way.
Yeah, it's
It's
almost like, and some of the visuals remind me like almost like a nightmarish version of like the Croft Superstars. Remember that? Like with those like
yeah,
characters like that. What was the oh my God, what was the name of the guy? Mr. Melancholy, like that
yeah,
that guy. And it's just the way they do it, and even the way, without a spoiler, even the way like later on how one of the main characters, Owen, sees the show back years later is so realistic because it's like, it showed it how like, oh, okay, well that was when I was that age, I saw it this way, and now I don't see it. And it's just fascinating. Like I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, and I don't want to spoil it because I want everyone to experience it the way I did, going into it with not knowing much.
No, but I liked what you said about that because there's a scene where he realizes that things. Again, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but things appear different to you when you're younger than they do when you're older. And that's brought to life. Like, it was such a neat moment when that happened because you remember things that scared you when you were a little kid. You look back on
Yeah,
them as an adult, and you're like, why did that ever affect me like that? Why was I ever
yeah.
scared? Or
Why did I even like this?
why did
Or
I ever
it's
have
like
a
what?
crush on
Yeah,
that girl from the Ghostbusters video,
yeah,
Tim?
yeah.
Like it was just funny, weird. It's weird when you see like these little crushes you had when you were 10 years old, and you're like, what, really? And so I thought that was cool. And then the other thing I thought was cool was, and I told Brian this even when I texted him, was they she really captured the way kids talk to each other
Yeah, you did
because
say that because yeah, you was telling
because
you that was
Anna,
one of the things you told me right away. You were like,
yeah,
they captured this well.
Anna is the same age as the kids in this movie essentially, and I see her the way she interacts with her friends, like at the mall or something. Like, we take her and she runs into somebody she knows, and it's that same weird, like awkward, like it's, hey, how you doing? Good. And it's like there's these weird, awkward silences, and they're like real short, and it instantly struck me. I was like, oh my god, like this sounds like real dialogue because most of the time, movies and TV shows do not write how people talk.
No.
And I thought this one did such a good job of capturing how people really talk to each other. Kids at that age, especially, just
Yeah,
there are awkward silences, and there's weird responses to things, and you don't normally see that in movies and TV shows because they have to keep things flowing and they have to deliver information, and none of that's applicable in this movie. Like this movie is designed to feel real,
yeah.
and
And Julie always said that's her biggest gripe because she works with kids in her job, and she always says, so she was like, this is not the way kids talk. She's
yeah,
seen a million movies. She goes, this is not how people talk. And it's like, and that's one of her biggest criticisms in a movie. And I'm like, I want to show her this because I'm like, I think she might feel that, she'd probably be the same way. She goes, oh my God, yeah, this is the way they do it. Because that awkwardness, yeah, because they did capture awkwardness well.
yeah, I thought that was good. And there was another point in the movie where they're talking about, oh my gosh, I read it. I don't think I caught it when I first watched it, but I read it in an article later where it was talking about where somebody was talking about how their life felt like a skipping through chapters on a DVD, like their
Oh
memories,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
were just
yeah.
seeing. And I think about that all the time because I think about when the kids were younger. I mean, when they were like babies and when they were toddlers. That's years, hundreds and hundreds of days I spent with them as babies and toddlers. But when I look back, all I see are flashes. I see, the trip to the zoo or this, but you don't see every single day. You don't remember every single day, and that's always bothered me. But that's just how human memory works. We don't
Yeah,
remember every single day. You remember highlights, and it is like chapters of a DVD. You're not seeing the entire movie. You're just seeing the highlights. But it's always been something that bothered me. And when I read that in the article, I was like, oh my god, like, that's just such a profound thing to talk about in a movie that
yeah.
other people think of that as well. I don't know. It really made me think. I
Yeah,
guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, and honestly, I don't know if a human brain could handle it a different way, like
Yeah,
remembering every single thing because you think about the thing when you've done something stupid and it like sticks with you for like weeks. Can you imagine having to remember that for the rest of your life? Like
I
I think my
know.
brain would explode because I do think of sometimes this stupid thing I said like 30 years ago. And I'm like, why
Yeah,
would I say something like that's stupid? How embarrassing would that what yeah, and like stuff sticks with me already. I can't I need I like in fact I would like more chapters
and my
based. I think I remember
my
too
memory's
much.
terrible to begin with. Like I mean, I can't, like, you asked me I would be the worst person in the world if I was on the witness stand and they said, where were you August 21st, 2022? I I freaking I'd be like, I don't know where I was 2 weeks ago. Honestly,
Yeah.
can't tell you. I have no idea. Like
Yeah.
I'm like
I know.
I
I
just live in the present. I have no idea.
I used to have the memories of that stuff, but I can't anymore. It's bad.
I'm
Um,
so
wh-
bad. Like my memory is terrible. I'm like the
yeah.
worst. I'm the
Yeah,
worst.
one of the things because I don't want to go into too much of this because like again, this is a movie that I think everyone needs to experience, with their own from their own eyes and their own views and feelings of it. But I will say one of the choices that I liked that was interesting, like Bridget Lundy Payne, uh, they had them basically played by the same person. However, Owen was played by two different actors
That was
when he was
interesting.
younger. And it was
Yes.
an interesting choice because obviously it's Hollywood. You can make it because they made him once he got past the teen Owen, they kept him as Justice Smith. But they had the Ian Foreman play him as young Owen, which I thought was an interesting choice because he looked super young, that kid.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a very interesting, and I think it was probably to kind of like visually contrast on his mindset, how he had such a how you not only did he like grow up physically, but his mind was what it was that at that point, like he was so young he couldn't understand as much. I think that's the
Yeah.
way I took it. I mean I assume I took it right. I could be wrong, but I think it's one of those movies that a lot of people are going to interpret
I
different,
think
slightly.
you're probably right. That's why it was stylistically done. But at the same time, I also say at that age, the difference between a boy who's like 11 or 12 and 2 years later is incredible. Like
Yeah. Oh, it
it's
is.
such
Yeah.
a, like when they hit, it's like crazy the transformation they go through. And Josh was at that age where he's about to hit that. And as a parent, I'm kind of dreading it because you lose the last vestiges of your baby, and they suddenly just grow up in the blink of an eye. But I think that was girls tend to be less of a dress. I feel like are little bit of a less of a drastic change because they mature quicker, so they've kind of already hit that. But the boys, man, it's like that's what I noticed just being a dad of a kid around the same age is like I felt like the young versus the like they couldn't have made that young kid. I don't feel like they could have made the older kid look younger convincingly, and they could have made the younger kid look older convincingly.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
way it was just at that transformative age where that was the only way to do it properly. But I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I love the choice of it. I think it was a great choice to me. It was the right one too, because it worked. I don't know if you want to before we move on just to the beer pairing, but if you wanted to touch base, 'cause I know you've watched the show. I haven't watched. I never really saw it, but I know a lot of people are saying it, and you told me right away the comparison to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? There's a big like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
noticed a big comparison to
They
that,
even
right?
used the same font to Buffy the Vampire Slayer when they were showing the pink opaque. But here's the thing: Brian and I are a little older for this generation of movie in terms of like this is nostalgia for the 90s, whereas our nostalgia was for the 80s. So we're about a decade older. But you see a lot of adults now that have that same 90s nostalgia that we had for the 80s. Now, what's interesting though is that I still clearly remember the 90s nostalgia. I just was in, you know, going into latter part of high school and mainly going into college. So that was kind of my college years. But I still watch TV, so I still caught shows like Buffy and things like that. So I definitely understand where they're coming from, but it probably hits home more for people that were kids at that age versus
Yeah.
us that were in college. But yeah, I watched I used to watch Buffy quite a bit with Olivia, and then it wasn't until after it went off the air that I really watched the entire series. So we went back, I still own all the DVD sets of Buffy, and we went and me and Olivia watched all of them and Angel and all
Yeah.
that.
That's a
So
show I need to just binge at one
it's so
point.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of got where they were coming from, but they really nailed that 90s television show feel. They did a really good job of that. Again, I don't have the nostalgia for it since I was older, and I even watched it after it aired. But Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've gone back and watched reruns of that. That's another show that they kind of reference.
Yeah.
And the kids, they watch a lot of those old 90s kids shows from Nickelodeon and stuff. So I'm very familiar with the aesthetic and they really did do a great job of nailing all that. In the, I love that they used the Buffy the Vampire font. I recognized it immediately when it came on that was the Buffy font. That was kind of cool. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hey.
so and they have some like '90s stars in this one, like Tara from Buffy, Amber Benson. She was in here. So there's a lot of '90s references. So if you were a '90s kid, you'll definitely get a kick out of this. I will say one thing. I want to tell you what it's not, because when I went into this movie, this is what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like Channel Zero. Season 1 of Channel Zero is about like a haunted TV show, like a kids show that's so
Oh yeah,
weird.
yeah. That's what I thought it was kind of gonna be like,
I
but
thought it was going to be that, and I think that's why my initial disappointment, where I was kind of like this was slow, because I really expected this was going to be some kind of crazy like for lost TV show that kids remembered that was really super scary, and it kind of hints at that at the beginning, but then it turns into something completely different. So if you're going into this kind of expecting that Channel Zero vibe, it's not that. It's its own thing, but I think it's well worth the journey, because especially when you go back and read about what's actually
oh
going
yeah,
on,
yeah.
it's a really powerful movie.
Yeah, it deserves the accolades it got this year for the chainsaw. So
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
excited. I
So
was glad I'm glad we put it ahead to watch
yeah,
it to make sure it's
yeah,
a good milestone movie.
yeah, definitely
Um,
interesting.
yeah. So we'll move on because I don't want to get into it to the point where we accidentally spoil something for somebody. But I did get a great beer pairing. I don't think I could have nailed this beer pairing any better.
I couldn't believe this
Uh,
when I read it. I was like, nah,
I
that's not
couldn't either.
true.
I just Googled it on a whim and said maybe, and sure enough, there is a beer called Pink Opaque, and it's from Shacklin's Brewing Company out of Toronto, Canada. And it's 5%. It's a sour fruited beer, and it says the Pink Beauty is chock full of grapefruit, light, sparkling, and nicely sour. This beer is a perfect accompaniment to the summer weather. So I don't know if it matches necessarily the show or the movie well, but at least it kind of goes by name. So that was kind of good that
Yeah,
we got something like that.
and I like my grapefruit beer, so I'll
Yeah,
definitely.
no, I do too.
Yeah,
I like a good sour every now and then, a nice good beer.
yep.
So the fan topic foo I think is pretty appropriate, although it's like I think we're gonna like it's not gonna exactly match the kind of things that people are going through in the show, the movie per se. But my fan topic foo, Tim, was there ever a show that you felt so connected to as if it felt like you were part of the show?
This is a hard question for me, because my answer is no.
Yeah, my kind of mine too. In terms of that degree. So I'll say this. After I wrote it, I realized this might be a challenging question because that is a very fanciful kind of thing. So I think we can blend it to the point of where a show that you felt like you could be in it, kind of thing, like you would fit in with it.
Oh
So we
man,
can expand it into that.
it's hard to say, because here's the thing though. I tend to be very broad in my taste. Like I watch a lot of TV, I watch a lot of movies. I rarely go into like a deep dive on one particular genre or one particular show or anything like that. So it's tough for me, because when I think of TV shows that I grew up with and watched over the years, it's like it's not like that one show that I loved so much. It was the 25 shows I love so much. So it's really hard for me to like single out one that I felt like I could be part of. Ugh. Mm. Oh, do you have one in mind, Brian?
I mean,
I have to think
part
about
I have
this
a
one.
couple that could fit in, but possibly like Freaks and Geeks a little bit.
I
You know,
never
because
watched
that
that
high
one.
school thing where the kids ran, or even the Goldbergs a little bit, kind of stuff like that, but more because of the time period and the things that their characters liked that I liked, and the friends that they had, the kind of friends I had. But like, if I want to go as an adult, I mean, like, it's funny. I've been rewatching because I got it for $10 on iTunes. I've been watching that show, The League. I've been rewatching it through, like the Fantasy Football League show, and just some of that things. I'm like, oh my god, this is some of like our group. The way we'll sit there and we'll like kind of joke about one topic and come up with names for things and puns and stuff. So stuff like that. Like I could feel like I could fit in with that group per se. I
This
could
is
fit in those groups.
Yeah, this one I definitely could not fit in, but it makes me the only reason it made me think of it is because it was probably the most like binged out I ever got on the show got onto a television show was probably The Sopranos.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's a show like I ended up like binging in a ridiculously short amount of time to the point that's I basically lived and breathed that show for a period of time. And that was like probably the most intense deep dive I've ever done into a show. Um, other than uh, I would say Star Trek: The Next Generation, but I never finished that. I went really hardcore deep into the first 4 seasons, and then I didn't ever finish it. But The Sopranos, I went from beginning to end like in one straight shot.
Oh,
And
nice.
so again, I love mafia stuff, but that's definitely not one I would fit in or felt like I belonged to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough question. It was tough. And when you watch the movie, I think it'll make more sense why I did the question. But yeah, that's why I had to kind of elaborate it when I realized it. Like I try and keep the fan topic foods like to the movie, but some movies just don't fit
Yeah, I mean,
perfectly. I
but
think this was
it's a good
one.
question. Like, I look at the characters in this movie, how deeply impacted they were by this show. Like, was there ever a show that you had to be there when it came on? Like, you couldn't miss it. You had to watch every episode, and that's the
Well,
other one.
that for me, Lost was like that when it was out, when it was coming on.
Yeah,
Lost
maybe
was like that
I could kind of
for
see
me.
that. Yeah, I could kind of see that. I'm trying to think because I even then I'm kind of struggling as to what shows that I was like can't miss type thing, and I really can't think of any. Um,
Yeah,
but
I challenged you on this one. This was a tough one.
that was a tough one. If you
And
guys
fan topic foods are not meant to be necessarily easy. There should be a
no
little bit of
no there's
challenge,
they're
but brings
actually I
up
like
good
it better when they're
discussion.
not.
That's its point. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I think I'm also in my mind I'm trying to compare that level of fascination with the characters in the movie,
Yeah,
to
it's
that
hard.
level.
I don't
That's
think you could do
hard.
that.
No,
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't.
think
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
I don't think
but
there's anything that would exist to that point. But yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Again, I will have to say it's very to me it's really horror adjacent. It's not an outright horror movie, but if you know the work of this director, that's kind of the trademark. And the best I can say is if you go watch the World's Fair movie. We're all going to the
Yeah,
World's
I'm thinking of
Fair.
watch that. That might be one of the next ones I watch
You're
for
gonna
this
get the
horror
same
challenge.
feel.
Yeah.
It's not a traditional horror movie. The horror comes from basically what you put into it as the best. I don't
Nice.
know what they call it. Like I don't know if this goes into the same thing as like Skinamarink, where it's like this kind of like meta horror type thing where there's nothing actually really that scary, but it's kind of you projecting your own emotions into it that makes it scary kind of thing. I don't know if
Oh,
it falls in that same
sorry. I had
cat.
a feeling that was gonna happen. Sorry. Obi just realized Julie walked in, so she's barking. Let me
Oh
just let
my
him out of the room. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, my kids are screaming. There's people clattering plates. It probably sounds like a
Up, Julie actually came up. Julie
entire
snuck it.
restaurant in
And
here.
she came to the door and opened it. Obi would he darted out, so I didn't have to leave. So now everyone got a little taste of Obi. You could leave
Yeah,
that in if you want. He always wanted to be on the podcast anyway, so
yeah. Well,
he's gonna
Mia's
be safe.
always barking and kids are screaming, and so
Yeah.
it's
What
always
was
a
it like the
whirlwind.
other day? I think it was like one of the Kim and Ket episodes. Her Ket's cat was making an appearance, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty
what you
good.
get
But
when you don't have a
yeah.
glass enclosed studio. You're just doing it from your
No,
house.
we don't have to. We need to get to that's maybe season like 12.
Yeah,
We might get
yeah.
up there. But yeah, no, this is a good. I'm glad we did this movie. This was a good one. I think it brought a lot of good discussion, and I think it's an important film, a good important film for people to watch. Like, I think it's good to get a horror film like this that is not so normal, and not to use that term elevated because I don't think it's even like that kind of a
It's
thing
not.
where
No,
people
it's not.
consider. It's just its own thing, and it's its own style. And Jane Schoenbrunn, apologize, we killed her name, but Schoenbrunn. Um, has her style, and it's fine because you know what, like it's like anything, like there's different types of comedy, there's different types of drama, there's different types of horror, and people can, and so it's like why when I don't like when people put horror or anything really in such a tight box that, oh well, this isn't horror because it's not this, or this isn't this, that. Well, you know what, like the horror is different to everybody, so it's like, you know what, there is a obviously there's a major audience for this that consider it horror, and people love it because I haven't seen one bad comment on this
No,
movie.
no. And
I
watch it.
haven't seen one bad review. I haven't seen one person that said, "Oh, I don't see the hype of this." No, everyone has found something in this film
Yeah, if you don't
that
want to
made
consider
them
it
enjoy it.
horror, just consider it a movie. Just watch it as
Yeah,
a
but
movie. and
Yeah.
don't put
I
it
mean,
in a
I
bucket.
totally can see the heart in it. And it's there's some creepy sequences with that Mr. Melancholy thing in there, and there's just a lot of just and it makes you think back, and movies should, you know, like, I know, yes, movies, I always say movies, you should enjoy the movie. Don't forget to enjoy the film, but also you can still enjoy something and still learn something and still get something from it and get an impact, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's like now I'm like I completely forgot about that Let's All Go to the World's Fair movie, like, because I remember it being a couple of years ago being talked about, and I forgot, and now it's like, oh my God, I got to go see this now, because this
yeah.
movie had such an impact. So
You'll I think you're gonna like it if you can wrap your head around this one. You'll definitely like that one as well. It's very interesting. But yeah, so
yes,
yeah, check this one out, guys. It's very off the beaten path, but in a very very good way. So we will be back next week with the another mini franchise for found footage Summer Slaycation, which we are doing. It's already been posted on Twitter, so this is not a spoiler. But we're doing Creep and Creep 2, which are
yes.
the great double feature there of Mark Duplass did several years ago, and they're two of my favorites. I think we had a great discussion on those, so that'll be
Yeah,
coming at
I'm
you
still
next week.
hoping for Creep 3 to come out. So,
Yeah, yeah, or that's whatever he's got something planned. I don't know if it was going to be a series but it's going to be creep related. Yeah, we don't know if it's
oh, that's right. Yeah, because next week it's yeah. So next week the releases. Yeah, you're right. It's that one. I made a mistake actually when we were talking earlier. So just a little bit scheduling. So yeah. So the way we look at it is that episode should release. This one you're listening to now is releasing on a weird day, on a Wednesday, due to some scheduling issues. So should release when you're listening to this, should be Wednesday the 21st. Monday the 26th, you should be getting the release of that the Creep episode we talked about, the little
yeah,
mini franchise. Then after that, on Monday the 2nd, which is Labor Day, you will be getting the first uh, episode of the final franchise we're doing and then the next day, actually, you'll get the Dismemberment on the 3rd. So you'll get a bit like that first week in September, you get 2 episodes, and our final Slaycation should drop Monday the 9th, actually, and that'll be our final uh episode. We might have some mini-sodes sprinkled in those couple of weeks too, and then probably, honestly, that Monday the 16th already, I hope to be able to have the horror challenge info out there. We'll have at least a mini-sode kind of bringing that up, because we got some new people interested in it this year. Because believe it or not, already we are like fastly closing in. I mean, we're already in like pumpkin season,
oh
big
yeah,
time. We're getting it. The haunts are starting up soon. We
I'm
have a cool,
excited.
yeah, we do have an episode we were going to do with a local haunt in my area. Actually, reached out to us. So not our plan is not only to have him on in earlier in the haunt season, so we can kind of give a preview, but they actually invited me to go tour the two haunts. They run two different haunts not too far from each other, and they had me tour it to go through like with video, which that we're not going to release until unfortunately after the season, like on Halloween. They want us to release that one. But I think it'll be fun because I've always wanted to see, talk to people that have these big haunts. Like we did talk to that one author that had that little home haunt, but this one
Yeah.
is a pretty big haunt, and they run two of them. And this is, I think, the first or second year of the new one, and they're really trying to get their ground. So it
Oh, that
definitely
sounds
seems like it's
cool.
a really cool
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff in. So honestly, we may not have many regular episodes in September. Um, but I think it'll all be good stuff. Like I know we're working on having a really cool guest come on, for that month too. You never know what else could pop up in that point. Obviously, because we're actually we're having trouble for the first time. We're like having actually not be able to get interviews due to scheduling, just because it's been so busy, and there's a couple of ones we wanted, and we just can't seem to make it work out on the time they need to be and the time we have. So
Yeah.
it's been busy. Civil Gore has been very busy.
It's one of those good problems to have, but you also
Yeah, like
but you want to accommodate everybody too. So it's
yeah,
always a tough call when you have to turn down an interview or something because obviously value and treasure all of our interview
Oh my God,
opportunities.
I love it. I was just thinking back, like there was something I was watching something. I said, "Oh, we interviewed them. Oh yeah, we interviewed them." And I was like, we really did interview. We have had a
Olivia
lot of
gets
great
tight. She
interviews.
hates when I do that. Like I'm like, oh yeah, we talked to that actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to that person. Oh yeah, I talked to this director. Oh yeah, I know. We talked to the guy that wrote this. Just like, just shut up.
Well, I think he's proud of his interviews. That's a damn rare thing these days. Oh, we should now, on a side note, not horror related at all, but very Tim and I related. Funko Pops of Del Griffith and Neil Page are coming out
I'm
in a
pre-ordering
2-pack
those. I
that
am
Tim and I
pre-ordering.
must own. Yes,
Yes.
Tim and I must own those. We must
Yeah.
possess those. They will be proudly on that. I just wish they had a whole set,
I
like you know,
know.
like they had like a one with like the guy, you know, that guy, like Owen. Like I want
People
him.
train don't run out of
Yeah,
stubbill unless
Stubbill.
you're a hog or a cattle. All right. So
Yeah, Tim and I are just now making weird sounds at each other and faces, but yeah, we'll do that. And we still need to do that. I think this is a year we need to do that, Tim.
we got to
That we
buckle
need to
down and do the
do
planes, trains, and automobiles
and I want to
commentary.
see now that we have the software, maybe we can even do some kind of live thing of it, like a live watch.
stream. Live
A
watch would
live
be
s-
awesome.
Well, we might not be able, by rights wise, be able to present it, but we may be able to do a live watch along with people where, like, you know, kind of Kim and Ket did,
Yeah.
where, you
Yeah,
know,
we
they
could do
had
that.
you
We
were
all
not
started
showing the
at the
movie.
same
You need your
time.
own copy, but we just all stop at the same time, and you see Tim and I like talking about it. We have enough time before Thanksgiving to get
It's
that
basically
sorted out.
us just
So
laughing through the entire movie. If you want to tune in, for that,
probably
just
and repeating lines that you've just heard.
yes.
But yeah, so we'll have to figure that out. I want to do another. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some more roundtables in there because the chainsaws will be coming up. I don't know if they announced the actual date of the awards, but I'd love to do another roundtable preview show.
It's
of
sometime in
that.
October. I can't remember the exact date, but it was like
Yeah,
mid-October.
so basically the next 2 months are going to be crazy. So
Yeah.
like, I apologize now if you love our regular episodes. You may not get many in the next 2 months, but you will definitely get content. It just
Yeah.
tons of because Tim and I will be going to haunts. I'm planning to also go to the Halloween Horror Nights out here for the first time in Hollywood,
Well,
and not
I was
Scary Farm.
disappointed because I really wanted to do Busch Gardens Hallow Screen this year, and the kids wanted
Just go back again.
I know the kids wanted a vacation, and before school started, and they just really insisted. I'm like, yeah, but if you hold off just like 3 or 4 weeks, we could go up there and do Hallow Screen. They're like, no, we want to go on vacation now before school starts. So we're going to be up there, unfortunately, at Busch Gardens before the haunt stuff begins. But you know, we'll probably hit. We might even hit Scarowinds this year. Going up to my dad's for his party. We may. We'll definitely do the Hickory Grove Haunted Trail again. So I'll definitely have some haunt stuff to report back.
Oh yeah, and I want to do the Winchester one again because I love that one. And
Yeah.
apparently they're even upping it because they were actually featured at Midsummer Scream. They had a booth because Allie and Emma were telling us.
I
they
feel like
saw
this is going to be an up year for Halloween. Do you
Too.
get that? Because
I
the
do.
pumpkin spice landed early. Like I'm seeing the cost, like the Spirit Halloween here opened early compared to last
Ours
year.
didn't yet though out here. There's one of them, the one close to me that I didn't even get to net last year was like the building is gone, so they can't even that building was so closed and condemned that they couldn't even put a Spirit Halloween there. They
Which
just
is
closed. They
bad,
just
'cause they can
condemned the
fit one
whole
in.
building. It's
Yeah.
it's rubble
Uh,
right now. But there's another one like maybe like 15 minutes for me, so I can go
I don't
to
know.
that one.
I feel like the hype's up this year for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but maybe it's just wishful thinking. I don't know, but it just seems like it
Yeah.
started earlier this year. And my hype level has gotten started earlier this year for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, no, mine too. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot of good stuff.
All right, guys. So we'll see you back here soon. Take care.
Yeah.